had with Richard Hart, who's a, you know, theoretically is about as, or at least style wise, as opposite as you could get as Andreas. But what I think was interesting for me in sort of like sussing out the seriousness with which, although Richard had a very different style, much more brash. I mean, I've listened to literally every live stream all the way through. You know, there's still a lot of stuff that he says that is like cringe to me. Like I'm like, oh, like, okay, all right. I mean, that's a choice. But just the framework that I had from Andreas and the education in Bitcoin and sort of the core ethos there is what allowed me to sort of like peek behind the like bravado curtain and Richard's style and see like, oh, like Richard is cut from the same cloth. Like he is about, you know, personal sovereignty. He's about having crypto that doesn't have admin keys. He's about like privacy. Like all of those components were there in Hex. And then, you know, sort of that follows through with Pulsechain. So it was a kind of very interesting sort of perspective to sort of see like, oh, like the things that people say about Richard Hart online, like I'm gonna try and prove them right. Like they say he's a scammer, like okay, great. Like the spam king, like what? Where did that come from? Oh, it came from like some articles on like ZDNet, like an old tech magazine, like online, and like, you know, what was the issue? Oh, this guy whose name is, you know, Bennett Hasselton, like he sued him and like Bennett ran an email server and he lived in the state of Washington. And they had just passed a law that was anytime you get spam and it runs through your server, like you have the ability to sue people. So this guy decided like, oh, this is a great way for me to make money because I run an email server. So I'll just dragnet any person I can find the information for and sue them. So it was interesting when I sort of dug into, you know, that claim of Richard being a spam king, and found out like, oh, like Richard's actual case, like he was named with four other unrelated co-defendants. Oh, and it was small claims court. And it's like, so like the like criminal mastermind sort of reputation online started to fall apart a little bit. Especially when you consider like if you're doing internet marketing in the early 2000s, what is that vehicle? Like that's email.
That
So
was the only way to do it. If
yeah,
it seemed like
yeah,
back then, if anyone
exactly.
was around.
Yeah, I mean, so like, okay, like, is he in his early 20s? Yes. Like, you know, sure. Like, you could say, like, okay, like that's a young guy, like maybe making some questionable business decisions. But like, I mean, criminal mastermind, like certainly not. You know, so that was like, okay, great. So that gave me sort of that trail was like, okay, like let me see what else I can prove. You know, I'll take all the FUD claims, everything that people would say about Richard, and then try to walk them backwards and find the truth. Like, don't rely on other people's opinions. Go and search out this information for yourself. And yeah, I mean that's kind of how I ended up down that journey. It took me after Hex launched, I you know jumped in sort of on, you know, day one, two, and you know the first 30 days or whatever. But it took me a solid 3 or 4 months of really, you know, putting time and effort into researching, before I was like, you know, like Bitcoin has been around for, you know, almost 10 years now. This is in you know 20, or like I said 11 years at that point. You know, and I had looked at like what Bitcoin had done, and it was around like, you know, $2,000, you know, 3,500, 4,000, somewhere in that ballpark. It's like, okay, like Bitcoin has had this tremendous run, so I'm going to sort of take all of my Bitcoin, I'm going to move it to something, you know, that I think has legs, has fundamentals. And yeah, and that's kind of, you know, that was my journey to get started. But there's so much game theory that people can unpack, with this ecosystem. Yeah, staking is a whole nother thing all in itself. Just like setting up staking ladders and, you know, how to time those. Like, I mean, if there are things I know now that I would like do a wildly different looking staking ladder than I have currently. But then also knowing like, okay, that staking ladder is in place to temper the, you know, sort of compulsion to want to trade, based on emotion. Like this has been 4 years of suck. Like this sucks. And I think that, you know, this having the stakes in place are like, okay, like we're gonna take the emotion out of this. We're just gonna sit here and we're just gonna ride the thing and see what happens. Like, making those decisions in a clear-headed moment is like a tremendous tool versus like the amount of frustration where people just like jump out of trades. But anyways, I mean that's sort of my brief little history as far as how I got into Hex and Pulse Chain.
I'm kind of the same.
I'm loving it. Go ahead, Ash.
No, I'm kind of similar. Like I've watched pretty much every one of his streams, right? I've been around the community quite a while in the background. And for me, it really is just like I was always trying to prove this wrong. Like I'm trying to find the flaw. I'm trying to figure out where the scam is, where, why I wouldn't want to be here, right? Like where am I going to go elsewhere? Like I'm looking around, like I'm trying to prove this out, and I'm having a hard time finding another place for myself. Even that started that way when I first got into Hex. I was actually in another community, and I was part of their Slack channel. And in their Slack channel, I didn't really realize this at the time, but I was sitting there, saying, "Hey guys, have you guys heard about Hex?" Like kind of just describing everything, and getting into these debates with these other folks in a different crypto community. And it basically got to the point where they basically banned me from the community because um, they were getting mad with some of the messaging that I was providing, because I was trying to defend and trying to understand where the flaws that they were seeing are. And they just couldn't come with any good claims, and so it just kind of made my belief in the product even greater, right? Because it is a finished product, it's done, it's complete, the contract's there. It's really, I believe, the evolution of crypto itself, because think about it, you're basically just making a proof of work change, and you don't have all the negative externalities, right? You don't have the miners and having to spend insane amount of money on electricity to solve useless puzzles, cryptographic puzzles. I mean, a lot of us people in Hex, we understand Bitcoin. We've mined Bitcoin before, we mined Ethereum before. Now it's obviously moved to staking, but we understand these concepts. And so for us, it's like, why do we want to keep dragging that ball and chain? Like, what is the purpose of all that? Like, why do we want to keep there? Why don't we evolve and solve the problem and make something that actually is better for humanity?
Yeah, I mean those are they're so like it's every single thing that people sort of bring up. I'm like, oh yeah, like that drive to sort of like engage honestly, or like have like critical debate with folks, like intelligent discourse about like, okay, like you don't like this thing, can you like enumerate or like go a little bit more into detail about like why you don't like this thing, and then you find out like no, this person doesn't like this thing based on like hearsay, rumors, whatever. And that was like that was very confirming to be like, oh, okay, like, so this is an opinion that isn't based in any rational thought or research whatsoever. Like, okay, like ignore. And yeah, I mean, you guys bring up a bunch of great points with regards to the mining aspect, the fact that, I mean, that was a huge deal. Like the sort of landscape in, 2018, 2019, like projects were launching with like a bunch of promises. Like, here, you're gonna guys, we're gonna do a raise, you guys are gonna give us a bunch of money, and like, yeah, like we'll build something cool with it. And Hex was like the opposite. Richard was like, it's done when it's done. Like, I'm building this thing. It's got to be flawless when it goes. Like, it's a smart contract. It's going to be immutable. You can't change it. So, like, the sort of like joke from waiting for the launch phase or the snapshot for Hex was like 2 more weeks. And I remember thinking like, oh, the snapshot's right around the corner in April, and it like didn't launch until December. But the fact that the code launched 100% complete, like it has not changed since day one. And that was a huge thing. That was born out of the sort of not wanting to draw the ire of the SEC. Like, if you have a code or a company where you say, hey, we promise that you give us money and then we're going to go do these things, that made you a security. That's why I found the SEC case like so absurd and laughable right from the get-go. They dropped that case actually about 3 days before the premiere of The Highest of Stakes. So that was curious timing. But that was a big component of the premieres. Like, holy smokes! Like, all of this news coverage has gone towards the SEC case. But when you read it, it's like they didn't even research this protocol at all. Just material facts of how Hex worked and how Pulsechain works and how it launched. Like, none of that stuff was correct. Which just made the sort of like 2-year ordeal so ridiculous.
Yeah, it seems like there's just so much misunderstanding with a lot of it. I don't know. I don't really understand why that is. I think people just have a lack of research is all I can really sum it up as, is just, and it just makes me wonder, like, when are the masses going to catch on? I mean, we obviously are fairly small still, but I mean, at some point, the scale has to tip to where, people like really dig in and they realize, like, just because the price chart's down doesn't mean the fundamentals of the crypto is gone, right?
Yeah, I mean, and a little bit of that is so many people know of Richard, right? Like, he set out with the outrage marketing, which definitely was a huge eye roll for me. Like, I'll be honest, like, holy smokes! Like, I got the sort of film off on the ground. I think we had maybe one shoot where there was like live stream Richard before we got outrage marketing Richard. For the film. And like, same guy, same message, just delivered in a totally different way. Now, a whole bunch of people they know who the guy in the Gucci tracksuit is, right? And he's like a component of the sort of like crypto mindshare. But I think it is difficult for people to sort of get ahead and sort of get into the meat of the what the protocols are and why they are valuable, and the fundamentals are neat. And I think that's where, as a community, we have to come in. For the people who are,
Yeah, and the OA is never sold. I mean, so I mean, we're just all waiting for the OA to sell. I mean, is it ever going to sell? Because I would think that, like, if there's so much risk of Richard, everything's risk of Richard, everything all revolves around Richard. Like, well, I'm not seeing that risk ever play out. It's been 5 years now, so
right.
what's going on?
Well, and that's, I mean, it's a direct page from Satoshi, right? Like, when you look at, and you have to like remember, like, Richard went through the same birthing period of Bitcoin. He's like is mirrored in Hex. Like, he says it in streams, like, when was the best time to get into Bitcoin? Like, when it was the most illiquid, when it was the hardest to buy, and when Satoshi literally owned all of the coins. Like, you have to remember that in the first year or two of Bitcoin, Satoshi literally was bootstrapping the network and had amassed close to 1.1 million coins. Like, he owned the lion's share of coins because the rest of them hadn't been minted yet. So there was huge risk that you had to take. It was a humongous leap of faith in Bitcoin, the protocol. And I think that's the same component that we're at the same place with Hex, right? Like, especially the first year or two, like, you literally had to just put all your faith in the fact that Richard was going to be a benevolent actor, or whoever controls the OA was going to act benevolently. Like, that was a huge leap of faith. And I think the longer that we go, like, you don't ever hear anyone talking about Satoshi's coins. Like, that's never a thing. It's never like brought up as a risk factor. It's just the assumption that they will stay, mothballed forever. And I think as we progress, as we sort of get through, and Hex starts to mature, like, I think we'll be in the same place. But it takes time.
Beautifully said. I really enjoy hearing you guys both speak. You guys are amazing. One of the things that I did commit to going over tonight is why stake Hex at all? And if you are willing to share your staking strategies or what you would do different, that would be really helpful too for new people.
Yeah, I mean, sort of the biggest component of staking is utilizing and sort of leveraging the multiplier on time. So, the fact that many people don't realize that for every year longer that you stake Hex, you get an additional 20% bonus on your T shares. Now, a lot of people I know, most people don't even talk about T shares at the moment because staking is so on the back burner. Um, but in reality, sort of T shares are a deflationary asset over the long term in the Hex ecosystem, and the reason that that is the case is that every single stake that expires, it becomes more and more difficult for you to replace your T shares. So when Hex first launched, the Hex to T share rate was you got one T share per 10,000 Hex. And I think by the time the first year was up and we were exiting the launch phase, it was up to around 17,000 Hex per T share. And of course, over time, we're now at, it's been ages since I looked, but I think we're around like 42,000 Hex per T share. So you need a lot more Hex at a much higher price, certainly than it was at launch, to sort of get the same number of T shares. Now, that would sound unattractive for new entrants until you realize that the T share pool is constantly dwindling. So you are basically looking to say, like, I'm going to take a slice of this pie and send it out into the future. And basically, like, by the time you have that piece of pie and you put it away for 5, 10, 15 years, whatever, if you're doing a 5555 stake, so many other T-shares will have been destroyed that your piece of pie and what your entitlement to the daily payouts are, just, it's like when they talk about the hockey stick or the parabolic return, like it's infinitely weighted at the tail end of your return, because of all the people who've emergency end staked, who've paid penalties, and the dwindling T-share supply. Eventually we'll get to a point in cost where the nomenclature of a T-share just won't make sense and we'll go to B shares, a billion shares, because just, I mean, owning a T-share or purchasing a T-share would be so cost prohibitive that it really will cease to be a metric. I think we'll probably see that in the next 5 years. And again, like, you're looking at a system that's still working, still functioning. So you've got people who are making, 15-year stakes today. They're going to be pushed so far into the future that once the initial round of 5555 stakes expire, like the 2 or 3 years on the tail end, even if we remain at if we were to just never go up and have it be 1.5 Hex per T share, in that range, like the payout is just absurd because that number will continually trend up as the T-share pool dwindles.
Plus the penalties from folks that don't, adhere to the contract and they end early. And I look at it a lot like also like hash rate, right? It's just you're moving the hash rate to the smart contract, and it's called T-share rate, right? I mean, in the Bitcoin ecosystem, right, you need more and more hash rate because the difficulty gets higher and higher over time, and that's what is the whole aspect of halving, right? Every 4 years the halving, right? Well, with us, it's just a constant rate that anytime someone gets the next highest ROI, then they're just basically ratcheting the T-share rate up so that someone, if they want to get back in after their stake is over and they've made their ROI, they're going to have to either push it out longer or a larger amount of hex. So it keeps the system balanced and gives the new participants a chance, and then also it keeps the people who've been in the system having to go out longer if they still want to maintain their yield.
Yeah, one thing that has always stuck with me that Richard said is the only thing that will become more rare than Hex itself is the T share. And it's really neat to actually see that playing out in real time, because I think for a long time it took me a while to really ingest what that meant, right? To wrap my head around what that meant. And now that I'm seeing these emergency end stakes where, the OA is absorbing most of the inflation, it's really just so obvious now to me how that's going to play out and how Hex is going to become the most rare asset. And fortunately, I've been learning from Crispy for the last few years and watching all of his streams. And so while everyone else is freaking out and chasing other things. We've been trying to work on our 2041 staking strategies, and so as I'm getting paid now, I'm staking it out, 6 months and a year out, just so that I can throw that amount out to 2041 for that bull cycle. And, when you do the math, once the OA's stakes end, I mean, the idea of how rare Hex will be at that time, and knowing that we'd probably get paid out maybe 180 Hex per T share, maybe even more than that, is just mind blowing to me. And perhaps I'm one of the crazy ones, but I believe that Hex will be $100, per Hex at that time, or more. I'm not saying that I need it to be. Fortunately, since I've been buying at the bottom here, it's more of just that I want to see him get the recognition that he deserves. I want to see Hexicans get the recognition that they deserve, because out of all the ecosystems I've ever been in, I've never seen people more dedicated and more loyal. Just the experience that I've had, and I actually bought Hex from 14 cents to 46 cents. I bought the top, and when people ask, how is this all going to pan out? And people can't imagine that, all of a sudden a lot of people are going to jump in and rush in and FOMO in. I think it's going to be the same thing that happened last time. I knew about Hex. I got into crypto at the end of 2019, so I could have gotten into Hex, but I was following the wrong people, and I got the impression that Richard was a scammer. And so I was, jumping in all these other ecosystems, and at one point I had like 200 different tokens, and it was just a hot mess. I got scammed like twice, and I remember watching Richard on Crypto Rand's show, and I just saw something in him that I've never seen in anyone else before. And once I started putting my money in Hex, I really just couldn't imagine ever finding anything better that I feel more confident parking my money in for decades. And yes, it's low right now, and so it doesn't feel good, but to me, I've got a second chance here at buying these lows, because I didn't get to buy in at the lows the first time around. So, for me personally, the longer it takes, the more I get to accumulate and set myself up for the future. So I see this as definitely being worth the patience. And for someone that comes from, traditional retirement mindset, where I was going to max out my 401k and retire at 65 or 70, to me, this is a dream come true. A 15-year stake is a third of the time of what I thought it was going to take for me to retire. But this community just brings out my best, and I've never doubted Richard Hart. I believe that he is in it to win it and to make the world a better place. He's certainly motivated me, and I believe that the same thing is going to happen, where we're going to get this big God candle, and people are just going to start FOMOing in. And, Cairo has fortunately prepared me where, I don't know when it's going to happen. I have no
And
idea,
I
but I want
think
to
I
enjoy
think
the ride. Go ahead.
I mean, I think it may that, a lot of people say that the God candle or whatever, but I'm looking at it more of just being a numbers game. Like, this is just, we don't have barely anyone yet, and it's really just getting in front of more eyeballs. And, we're not going to win over every single person. I mean, that's just not going to happen. But if we win over 3 or 4 people out of 10, and we just keep winning 3 and 4 people out of 10, and it's, you know but you're getting in front of millions and millions and millions of eyeballs, it's just natural, effect that the network's going to grow larger, and there's going to be more and more capital, and in turn, you would hope that price would be going up in that regard. That's kind of how I'm seeing it, as more of like a numbers game, because I also think just overall crypto, although it seems like there's still a lot of people in it, I don't feel like we've really, even scratched the surface yet, and that's just how I'm looking at it.
Um, when you're talking about conversion of like 30 to 40% conversion, I mean, in 2019, I was happy, when I would go in and reply in these threads. I'm like, if I can just get through to one person out of the 500
Yeah, I
people who are
mean,
like,
no, I agree.
it's like,
But I mean, I just think like it may get easier over time. Like I would think like because again, 5 years the OA hasn't sold. I mean, there's all these things, these myths, and these things that just aren't playing out. So we're trying to understand like where's the arguments? Like, come on, debate us. Like, the arguments aren't playing out. I mean, yeah, the price is down. That's about the main argument I guess people can make, but everything else is like a lot of it's being debunked as we go. And so
right?
it's like if all you care about is just price performance only, then which I'm not saying it's bad to care about price. Like we all know that it's price is something that we should care about, right? That's because if you want to sell any and take any level of gains, you need the price to be higher. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if we get more and more people in the system who understand what many of us do understand, it's just a matter of time before, the capital is going to be larger, the pool is going to be larger. If the T-share rate's going down, there's less supply, like, right, all these things, it's just a recipe for upward action, in my opinion. I can't see it any other way.
I
Hey
mean,
guys, can I
yeah,
ask some questions if that's all right?
sure.
Thanks for letting me up. Yeah, give a little tiny bit of context. I'm new to all this. I'm new to Richard. Not so much new to Richard Hart, but 30-second context would be girlfriend's in Hex and Pulse, and she's been shelling it to me for the past 2 years. I've hated it. I've been disgusted by it, but there's a big but, and I've been watching all the streams, everything like RH Maxi and all that jazz, right? Even I think Crispy's in the house as well. I've been watching them, and now I'm over. I just bridged over from Ethereum, and I've got two questions. I'm very curious. Like, what is the value in Hex? Because I was never warmed up to it. I always thought it was scammy and all that jazz. But now
Hmm.
that I'm over, I'm more warmed up to the idea. So yeah, well, like, what? That's my first question. Is like, what's the value in it for me? And then the second question would be like, what's the target audience for these core tokens? And like, what do you even mean by core tokens from someone who didn't look, I still consider myself an outsider. I just bridged over,
Hmm.
still getting my bearings here. But yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, Ash, I mean, do you want to start
A lot
or
to
I can
unpack,
go?
right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot there. I guess from my perspective, right, Pulse Chain, it's the gas token, right? We have better, cheaper gas, so that the S load function issue for hex stakes, if you go to stake your hex, which that is an optional thing, but if you do want to take advantage of being a part of the inflation of the coin itself, you'll want to stake it out and take advantage of the compounding effect. The longer you stake, the larger you stake, the more hex you're going to get over time. And it's a game of time. And that T-share rate that is continuously rising as more and more people get the next highest ROI, the longer you go out, the more compounding that you're going to get over the course of time. So, those are just
Uh,
some things to be aware of, but there's just a lot more to it, right? You have to do quite a bit of research. I'm not saying like you can't just buy the token and hold it. That's, anyone can do that. But there's a lot of dynamics also at play that I would suggest checking out some various websites that go into more of that detail.
I mean, I think for me, the value was seeing that. So, like, I really sort of buy into the sort of the reason why Bitcoin was created. Like, the fact that central banks can print money out of thin air, the fact that there's been endless inflation, the devaluing of the dollar, and I'm sure everyone here can probably relate to like even just 5 years ago, like what I was spending at the grocery store to feed the family is now like 70% higher. Like, and it's less food. Like granola bars, there used to be six in a box, and now there's like five. And you're like, what the hell, five? Like, and when I was a kid, I was like, I remember like you could buy a granola bar, and it was like eight in a box. Like, and it's more money. Like all of those things. So like the core concept of like a money that is outside of the banking system, that has clear rules, that can't be changed by anyone. Like that is what exists in Bitcoin, and it's what exists in Hex. You know, the features of Hex, the fact that it is a smart contract, and that it runs on Ethereum, and that the code is immutable. Like, so if you wanted to build on Bitcoin, like we've seen that Bitcoin is not very friendly to being built on top of. It doesn't have the throughput, the blocks are too slow. You know, you've got 10 minutes at least, give or take, just to get one confirmation. You know, most places, you know, if they want to be secure, waiting for 4 or 5 confirmations, so you're looking at an hour plus. Like that just is not a functional blockchain. So that's where Ethereum came in, which was great. And then the fact that Hex is built on top of Ethereum, you know, and you've got 12 or 13 second blocks, which was like mind blowing if you've never experienced ETH when you're coming from Bitcoin. You know, when you go to make a, you know, you send money to an exchange or you try to send it to yourself, the fact that it confirms and it's like in your wallet in less than a minute is pretty impressive. So the fact that Hex sort of leverages the advantages of the Ethereum network in the way that it runs is pretty impressive. Pulsechain, even faster and, you know, less expensive than running on ETH. What a lot of people don't know, and I think what Ash had mentioned sort of briefly, this is one of those like the curse of knowledge things when he mentioned the S-load transaction cost. So, you know, if you weren't around in, you know, for the early days of ETH, when Ethereum was taking off and going like gangbusters in the last bull run, it could cost literally like hundreds of dollars just to do a transaction. Like a swap, an ERC20 swap would cost hundreds of dollars. And the reason that Pulsechain was born is that the Ethereum Foundation, and when they made the various, BIP, which or EIP pushes for the code, they were across 2 different updates. They compounded. Hex uses this function called the S-load function, which does computation. So when you had to unstake something, basically what the Ethereum network had to do is it had to go back, look at the contract, which notated what the Hex per T share payout was for that particular day, and then it would have to go look at your stake and say, okay, I need to pull the number for what the payout was for every day over the last, you know, year, 200, 600, 700, 800 days or whatever. So we got to a point where there are some stakes where the cost of using that S-load function got insane. So you had people, you know, who had 2 or 3 year stakes where it was costing hundreds and, you know, to $1,000 or so to unstake stuff. That's where Pulsechain sort of was born, was like, look, the Ethereum network, and it did seem rather targeted and pointed because there's so few protocols that utilize that function. And it just disproportionately hurt the community. So Richard was like, fine, like if you are going to be antagonistic to us utilizing your network, like we'll build around you. And that's sort of where Pulsechain came in.
And I think that's the beauty of the community too, right? Is if there is ever anyone who is being, you know, antagonistic to our chain, right? We as a community can just through consensus decide to fork to whatever or do whatever or make changes, right? Like this is crypto. That's the nice thing I think about crypto is like, yes, we say there's immutable code and yes, the smart contract is immutable, but you know, we as a community can make decisions and, you know, do a sacrifice or whatever we want to do, right? We get to choose for the good of our community. So I think that's a great thing as well.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Yeah, no, that's very helpful. I was never warm to it, but the all those Richard Hart memes brought me over, and it made me more warm to Pulse and Hex. So I was just very, very curious because I hated it. I hated it, and yeah, this is really valuable now.
And what were
I
the
appreciate
pieces that you hated? What were the pieces that you were really getting hung up on when you did have a lot
That's
of
a
hate
good.
towards it?
I think now in hindsight, a lot of the hate was around the presentation of the ecosystem on
Okay.
YouTube.
The
So
outrage marketing?
In hindsight, I mean, no. Presentation and sorry, I'll be more specific.
Okay,
Specifically, the KOLs that were
Yeah.
trying to sell Hex and Pulse and all that jazz.
got
Yeah,
you.
I've been very disappointed, and that's why I just want to do my research. That's why I ask these questions. But
Sure.
thank you for answering them. They're super helpful.
Yeah, no
Like
problem.
other ecosystems, we don't have paid influencers. So anybody you see talking about Pulsechain or Hex, chances are they're not making a dime to do so. So it sometimes it changes the dynamic on the quality of the speaker. Sometimes not. There's obviously some people who are awesome speakers and great presenters, but we don't have that polished feel you get from some chains that have paid every single influencer to only talk about their thing for the next 2 years.
Yeah, and
You
keep in mind anyone can talk about whatever crypto they want, right? And then also the people that you are hearing talk about it, you have to make sure and pay attention to what are their incentives, right? Like, clearly I'll tell you I've been around Hex for a long time, so I have a lot of stakes, so I want to see Hex succeed. But, I'm still going to be honest and truthful and tell people, what I believe and even if it's good or bad. So, take it for
well,
what you want.
and I think that's a big component that a lot of people don't realize is that the fact that there was virtually any positive press or positive outlook on the ecosystem came from its users. It did not come from mainstream influencers because Richard wouldn't pay them. Like he was like, no, you're going to talk about my stuff because you like it. I'm not going to pay someone to talk about my stuff. And so that was like a big, he was thumbing his nose at the, sort of status quo of you have to pay
That
off
pissed
these
off a lot of
influencers.
influencers. Were
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
the
so
traditional ways, the handouts, the venture capital, all the ways that you would traditionally think a crypto would go, right? Which he probably knew that that's a recipe for disaster. And so that's probably why he avoided it, although that came with a lot of backlash.
Well, I mean, you give those influencers tokens, and then they just dump them ruthlessly on their followers. Like that's not helpful. Same thing with exchange listings. Like, oh, great, like you want to take a decentralized coin that's designed not to be like it's supposed to take you out of the horrors of centralized coins, like self custody, and then you want to like list it on an exchange where like can you even stake on it? Like, well, you have to give them your coins. Like, no, this is the antithesis of why crypto was invented. Like, you're supposed to treat your crypto exchange like a public bathroom. You go in, you do your business, and then you get out. Like, but people just, I mean, and that's a lot of responsibility. So people aren't always ready for that.
Guys, would you recommend any influencers or YouTubers or anything like that that covers the whole Richard Hart ecosystem? So, like, unites them all, right? Because there's different quadrants and different groups and all that jazz. Is there anyone like that unites them all?
I don't know of an
I don't
influencer.
really look at it like that. Yeah. I think each one has their strong points.
I know of a website off the top of my head that kind of has a list of links to help you navigate the ecosystem. It's Pulsestart, PLSTART.me, and it's by OG member of the community, and it's just all the legitimate links in one spot to just kind of give you a feel.
I think that's also one of the things that a lot of people overlook is that like, and what was made the community, I was like, wow, like this is really impressive from a community effort standpoint. Like the number of tools that people built to service the ecosystem all on their own was insane. From people spinning up like Kibana installs, which basically would allow you to like look at the entire blockchain data set for Hex to like run reports. You know, the fact that we had, people out there creating wallets, the fact that there were people who were just like, oh, like hex.com ever goes down, like here's 3 other websites that allow you to, run that have, their own independent front ends to access the Hex ecosystem. Like there was a lot of people in the system who understood crypto, who were really smart, that functioned at a much higher level and had a much bigger, sort of crypto maturity who were there to build tools because they saw the value in it. You know, I'm sure that we can sort of like look back on that. Like there's some success stories and some not so successful stories from that time period as everybody's sort of like, you know, interests change and whatnot. But, you know, that's what made the community so vibrant. Like this is not just like a dog coin. Like these are some really intelligent people who put a lot of thought into how the ecosystem works.
And now looking back on that, right, it was impressive at the time, but now we have AI to where, you know, anyone can really start to develop a lot of these same things. So
Yep.
there wasn't AI at that point. Like there was no chat GPT. That was 2022, right? So, you know, when Hex came out, right, 2019, right, it was really just people who had some tech understanding to build a lot of those front ends. So I agree, very impressive. Attracted me quite a bit as well, from those aspects. But now, I mean, the game is open for everyone, right? I think, you know, AI is making it so ubiquitous to just build things if you just describe it. I mean, it's really, we're going into a new frontier where, you know, people can just, you know, describe what they want to build and they'll get a front end that gets built for them. There's obviously other things that have to go into that too, but I don't believe it's as much difficult as it used to be. I think things have just improved quite a bit now. So, you know,
Yep.
I think the future's, you know, got a lot more to see. Let's just say that.
Circling back just to sort of like the question of like Richard, and I think this is sort of the like my favorite question to pose is that like you look at, you know, all the stuff that goes on other chains, right? All the scams, the rug pulls, you know, like all of those things, right? And you look at Richard, and if you're going to levy the fact or try and, you know, like say like Richard Hart is a scammer, you would have to then say, because the same thing would be true, that Richard is literally like pedaling 1,000 miles an hour on a tricycle, trying to get, you know, to take flight to run a scam. Like the dude created a coin from scratch, went through a ridiculous amount of effort when, you know, you used to just like connect your wallet to get an airdrop, where he's like, no, no, no. Like I'm going to give it to Bitcoin holders and I'm going to make a way for them to be able to claim it without having to like connect their wallet to anything, because that's bad OPSEC. Like I'm going to have people utilize the like message signing function where they post a transaction with a special message that my smart contract will look at and then give them the ETH, so they don't have to ever put their funds at risk to do that. Like what the hell is a scammer doing going through all of that work to make these things that like respect the core ethos of why cryptocurrency was invented if he's just looking to scam people? Like
It's
why
weird, isn't
bother,
it?
right? Like why bother building Pulsechain at all? Like why bother? There's so many things he didn't have to do if all he wanted to do was scam. So like
These are the questions I ask myself all the time. Like, honestly, because it's just like, you know, why, you know, like all these things, like, and then you've got these folks that are just, you know, I think they just, it's really just, honestly, it comes down to a lack of research. That's all I can chalk it up to.
yeah.
Is it takes work, it takes effort, it takes time in the market, time in, you know, just reading, looking at things, testing them, proving your theories. I mean, even I've been here for 5 years and I still think I'm on a journey. I don't claim to know it all. I don't, you know, I'm learning new things every day. So, I mean, if that tells you anything, I mean, there you go.
Yep. Yeah. I
All right,
mean,
I'm going to jump in because I think there's a part of his question that we didn't really answer well.
sure.
Frog, you asked what are the core coins? The way we define the core coins are the projects that Richard Hart and his team have developed themselves. They built the smart contract, and that is Pulse, Pulsex, Inc., and Hex on Pulsechain. Then you also have Hex on Ethereum. That is generally what we look at as core coins. And now let me speak to you to somebody that learned about this from their relationship. Oh my God, it's overwhelming. Yes. Oh my goodness. You had an edge on me. I had no crypto experience. And I was listening to conversations about liquidity before I ever knew a thing about safety, just because I was around people that had been in the ecosystem from the beginning or relatively early. It was a horrible way to learn crypto. Had it not been for multiple people in this chat, Fast is a big one. He spent a lot of time with me. I've had some very interesting talks with Briss when I met him. Papa Boner is down in the listeners. Absolutely phenomenal on security. But what got me into this and a value of Hex and the staking mechanism is the fact that I watched my better half get scammed off of a bad link. And the only thing that survived was his staked Hex because they couldn't see it, because when you stake it, it's burnt. So it doesn't show up in your wallet.
Yep.
That was the turning point where I knew it wasn't a scam. And guys, I love you for the dog coin token. That was a spear through my heart.
Yeah, Frog Boy, I would just say, welcome to We're Not So Bad once you get to know us. And your question earlier about, like, what is the value of Hex? I mean, I'll just give you the elevator pitch. I've said it a million times. I'll say it a million times more. I'll say it until my dying day. That Hex is the only yield-bearing asset that is not someone else's liability, because every other asset that pays a yield of any sort in TradFi or even in crypto in general is typically the liability of someone else. Hex is the one that gets around that requisite to pay a yield. Now, you want to talk specifically here about like the subject of this space is about staking and like why we do that or what's the value in staking. We got to remember like what we're doing here with staking is they say, well, you get paid the inflation to secure the price, because over in Bitcoin, you're being paid the Bitcoin inflation to secure the network. Well, what Richard wanted was something that secured the price by taking your coins off the market, depositing them into the staking mechanism that would reduce the supply of the outstanding coins and push the price up. Now, a lot of people, I can tell you, like the reason why a lot of people don't stake is because they think that the price is going to have this magic parabolic run up while they're staked, thinking in like the most nihilistic terms of unluckiness, which I can easily relate to. But here's the thing is like what's actually happening when you're not staked is you're actually getting a lot of downward price pressure applied to you, because the supply is going to inflate no matter what. It is going to go up. Like I say, it's 3.69 is the constant growth rate of the supply, the inflation rate on Hex. And don't think of that as a bug. It's actually a feature more so than it is a bug, because you have to any sort of rising demand. But when you have constant inflation going on, you really do have to put yourself in a position where that inflation doesn't dilute the value of your ownership in it. If I could use like a TradFi analogy for this, stocks, when you're a common stock holder, you have what are called preemptive rights, which means if the company wants to issue more stock, they first have to offer it to you so that your ownership in that company is not diluted by the new shares being issued. Kind of the same thing is going on here with those Hex stakes. The inflation at 3.69% that's going to happen anyway is going to somewhat dilute the value of your position. But when you stake it, you are not only going to get that 3.69% paid to you in staking rewards. I mean, you're guaranteed that, but also anybody who emergency end stakes, you get a little bit of their allotment there. And there's like also depending on like how many T-shares you own, like the bonus rewards that you're able to get really stack up. So while I see like a lot of people want to avoid staking because they think it's going to cause them to miss out on like some price appreciation that's going to go on, really in times like this here and like bearish times like this, I think that you do a lot better with staking, and you gotta be patient anyway in like really bearish times like this, so why not get paid for it?
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate all of your answers and answering all of the questions. I really do appreciate that. I have to go, but I just want to leave off with one question, and I'll be listening in the background. Yeah, thank you, Kari. Thank you. Like what's the most exciting and spiciest thing right now that's exciting you guys the most? Whether it's part of a narrative or something, anything that's spicy, I'd love to hear it. And I just want to say thanks for letting me up. I'll continue to listen in the background.
Honestly, the thing that's got me most excited is the prospect of the money printers finally going off, by the Federal Reserve finally opening up the floodgates to get that money printer going, because that to me is the main catalyst, the main driving force behind these bull runs. And it's such a powerful weapon. It's like a nuclear bomb being dropped that literally we could be investing in anything and it's going to make you money. As we've seen in previous bull markets, that whatever you invested in, you would have made money, even if it was trash, like the Luna token, for example. Like, that was clearly trash and it made you money. But also the fact that, like, the assets that we're talking about here are the ones that have the lowest liquidity. And like we had said it earlier, that the lower the liquidity, the more you increase the number of dollars in circulation, it's not going to be a linear increase in those assets. It's going to be an exponential increase in those assets. So that's what has me most excited, is when that money printer finally gets turned back on, which, if you want my most honest pressed opinion on when that's going to be, I think it's going to be June 2026.
Gotcha. I think for me, the most spiciest thing that I've got thinking in my mind is really just, what we've been able to accomplish with such a small amount of people in reality. Because, right, there's 675 million people that have been onboarded to crypto. So, just imagine what we could do with 10 million, 20 million people, 30 million, right? Like, if we can do what we did with just the numbers that we've had in the past, going to those kinds of levels, you can only imagine where things might be going at that point. Anyone else got any spicy takes?
Well, I didn't get
Want
to.
spicy?
Oh, yeah, I definitely want to hear spicy from you, Fast. Let's hear it.
Well, I think the spicy comes down to speculation, like not anything that's guaranteed. But there's this sack bag that's like a public wallet that we know about, suspected to be controlled by Richard Hart or associated entities, that has about, I haven't looked at it lately, but around $700 million in it. And when Ethereum hits about $6,008, give or take a couple pennies, that sack bag is going to be worth $1 billion. So the spicy speculation is that at some point that gets poured into the chain. Now, whether that's today, tomorrow, this cycle, next cycle, or never happens, nobody really knows. But it's spicy to think about. You could buy a lot of spices with that.
I love those spices. I also believe that we will see another 10,000x again. Not that I'm expecting it, obviously, but I do think that we're going for glory. And I think that we didn't go through all of this staking a whole new chain and fighting against the SEC, hiring 7 of the best law firms. We didn't do all of this just for a 1 or a 2x. I do not think that at all. And I think that those of us that are still here, we are going to be very happy with the outcome of this. With Pulsex, the 0.21% of the buy-in burden is forever. And so rather than the CEO getting all of the benefits with Pulsex, it's the holders who win the most, particularly when RH is known to be the only founder that owns the majority of the supply and never sells. That's a big motivating factor for me to hold these tokens long term.
Yeah, and then imagine 10 million tablets, and then people are saying, "Oh, what's this thing I'm hearing about that has all these green candles? Like, is that what's this website on this tablet that we got in the mail? Oh my God, maybe we should go check it out." I can just imagine the people that it just starts to get crazy. Can only imagine.
It's been pretty wild. Like, some of the first tablets have gone out, and people have literally bought them off of the people that were posting about them and posted them on eBay, and community members are buying them up for like $1,200. And it's just wild. It's creating a lot of hype, and I don't even think they've probably put out a quarter of what they intend to put out. So, and that's just like in the first round of the 400,000.
Yeah, it's amazing. I can only imagine where it's going to be when there's like 10 million out there.
Even if 1,000 people from that 10 million tablets invest $1,000, it's going to do huge things.
Yeah, I
It's
totally
going to be
agree with that.
amazing. Yeah, it's going to be so amazing, you guys.
I just am thankful for whoever's donating these tablets. They must be a really good person.
And the people that are sending them out and doing all the work to get them out to everyone, yeah, much kudos to them.
Hats
I know they're
off.
not on this space right now, but for sure, my hat's off to them as well.
Yeah, that's what motivates me to step up more and do my part, right? It's like we all have a role to play in this. We all have our own unique attributes. And for me, it wants me to, just do the best that I can for everybody. I'm excited. We have new people coming up to talk to us, guys. Make yourselves feel at home. Speak when you're ready.
Well, and it's like Richard said, find your niche. We all have different things we're good at.
I know I've been very fortunate to be here and be able to see everything unfold the way it has. And I'm following trends and watching things and seeing stuff unfold that, I could almost foresee, which is pretty much the reason why my handle is the Oracle, because it's wild. You can almost call it a manifestation if that's what you want to call it.
Well, Tam Tam, you might deserve an early night this week.
Well, I just brought some people up to speak that I haven't got to meet yet. So I'm hoping that they're about to start speaking if I actually do this correctly. I'm getting some requests here. So let's see.
Just take your time. I think we're all patient.
I also say, like, if anybody has like worries or fears, or they're hearing like a particular type of FUD, and they want reassurance that you're doing the right thing and that you're not crazy, well, here's also a good time to bring that up, because most of like the fears that people have, I've heard them all before, and I could easily ease those things for you.
Crypto Dave. I also brought up Cellulose. Any of you guys you want to talk?
Yeah, this is Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Hello, how are you doing?
Great. This is my first time talking to you, but I think I've seen your posts.
Yeah, I've been in the community for quite a while. Pre-Pulsechain, pre-Pulsex, Sacrafice, all that stuff.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, just wanted to say, thanks for bringing the positive energy. It's nice to hear. Regardless of what's going on, I love the positive framing of it. It feels totally different than sort of the kind of negative view of maybe, yeah, the price is low, but I see it as a huge opportunity, right, to DCA. That at some point we're going to look back and say, like, oh, I should have invested more. I should have put that extra, $50 into it. So thank you for just bringing that positive energy. It means a lot to us. So thank you.
Oh, I love that. I love hearing that. That means a lot to me too. And yes, I'm a healthcare provider. And, I think it's important our mindset. I believe that negativity is toxic, literally to our health. And I believe that, you can either have a victim mindset or a positive, willing mindset. And there's nothing that we can't get through together. And I do genuinely believe that we have the best founder in crypto. And if I had to guess, he's probably had to sacrifice more than any of us. I assume that he hasn't seen his mother in years. And I believe in him. I believe that he wants to make the world a better place. And I believe that he is actually giving us the tools to make that happen. And being in healthcare, I don't see anyone else fighting as hard as he does to try to, build a better quality of life. And I've never been motivated to work harder because of that. I love the free books that he's written, that he's given us. All the, countless hours of dedication and knowledge that he's shared. I don't see any other billionaire out there doing that. And I know a lot of people are hating on him or feel like he's abandoned us, but I see it the opposite. I see it in his actions every day. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people, and I'm just grateful to be here for it.
Yeah, that's great. I makes me kind of think of what the core of the community is, sort of like the heart of the community. No pun intended, or maybe it was. That there's something like keeping us here and keep us coming back. That keeps us DCAing when the prices are down. There's something here, and I think you're sort of tapping into it. That conviction that we are going to achieve our financial freedom.
There's a lot of hearts, man. The unit.
Yeah.
Hopefully everyone likes the pulses too.
Yeah. At first, I thought it was a little cheesy, but the more it all kind of connected together into one body, I was like, this actually makes a lot of sense. You know, it's pretty deep.
So something I look at is there's a website called trends.google.com. And what it does is if you type in, for example, like type in hex space crypto, or just type in Coinbase, right? You can search terms that other people are searching. And you can go back about 5 years and take a look at the chart of how people's search history is looking compared to what the price was doing. You're going to see a considerable decent amount of correlation in my opinion. So something that I'm looking often at is if there's a spike up in that sort of search traffic, you can more than likely expect some event going on that's probably going to start to increase the interest in that said crypto or crypto in general.